just how do you measure Jimmy Butler's impact for the Miami Heat in this playoff run for them?
I mean, truthfully, I think it goes just beyond his tenure in Miami. I think that Jimmy Butler is probably one of the most valuable players in the league, and I think that his reputation off the court kind of gives him a negative connotation. I think that people speak bad on his name because he's a competitor. I think all of us here, as former athletes who have played sports, know what it's like to have that teammate kind of be in your ass and kind of like wanting the best, whether that be vocally or physically or just, quite frankly, just
Kevin.
shut up.
Kevin, sorry.
Just an overall player that wants the best out of everybody, and I really respect that from Jimmy. Jimmy's a two-way player. Jimmy's a guy. If you don't already know his story, I mean, it's all over the internet. Jimmy was kicked out of his house at 13. Had to live with different friends. Went to a JUCO, then went to Marquette. Got drafted. You know what I'm saying? Like a typical kind of like struggling storyline, and that kind of followed suit in the NBA, where he was with Derrick Rose and the Bulls during that tenure when they were starting to come up. And, he lived through all those Derrick Rose injuries to where he had to lead the team and kind of get the reins. He was then traded to Minnesota. He had the episode with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins where he beat the starting five, outside of himself, of course, with their third string players in practice. That got a negative narrative. Goes to Philadelphia, has to play with Joel Embiid, gets a negative narrative because of how intense of a teammate he was. Goes to Miami, leads them to a finals in the bubble. I understand some people don't validate that championship because it's different. Now we're talking about Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years. We're talking about the top seeded team in the Eastern Conference again. These aren't flukes. All of Jimmy's teams outside of Minnesota have been competitive in the postseason. All of Jimmy Butler's teammates have said that he is a great teammate outside of maybe Cat and Wiggins. And again, I'm not saying that I've heard quotes. I'm just saying in general, people that have spoken about him, JJ Redick, Joel Embiid, Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, every single person that has meaningful time with him has said Jimmy pushed us to the point where he made us better. So I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, but to understand what he's doing in Miami, you have to know his backstory. And I just wanted to get both of your opinions as NBA fans who have watched basketball since as far back as we can remember. I don't necessarily know a player like Jimmy that has been as consistent as he has throughout his career and has received as much slander as he has. So I wanted to give Jimmy his roses. I wanted to give Jimmy his flowers because he is doing this at a consistent clip. And I mean, Mike, you're the guest. I want to pose this to you. We grew up watching Braun in Cleveland, Braun in Miami, and the Bulls were at that stage where they were always fighting and trying to compete. But
Hmm.
Jimmy Butler was that gritty player that you always said that guy's gonna be something special someday.
Yeah,
And I mean, tell me your thoughts on Jimmy throughout his career, bro.
I definitely think that, and this is just a personal opinion on me, that because we're in this like LeBron era, like the 2010s coming into now is, has been LeBron's era by the masses, that some people find it hard to cheer for other players. And when you find another player that has the grit that he has, that has the competitiveness that he has, people tend to pick and choose who they like. And I feel like he falls into that category. He is that guy that goes from team to team, but wherever he goes, they're gonna make some noise in the playoffs. They might not make it all the way there, but they're gonna make it there. Like uh, when you bring up the practice story, the first thing that comes into my head was watching The Last Dance, and Phil Jackson's like, "Yeah, I would put Mike on the starters team. They'll be up 20, and then I'll switch the teams and make him have to come back." Like a real coach is gonna see what he did with those third string players and go, "Damn, he just showed up my guys. That's gonna fire up. That should fire up my guys. It shouldn't be a negative thing." But that's just the way that we come from, you know. Even the little clips of like when he was on Philly and Ben Simmons was scared to shoot the ball. You see Jimmy going, "Shoot it, nah, shoot it, come on, let go," you know. And little things like that, we take them as jokes and we take them as memes, but I'm pretty sure that they go a long way inside that locker room. The same way you said it. Joel has said good things. JJ has said good things. I'm pretty sure he played with D Wade in Chicago as well, right? before D Wade went
That
wherever
might
he
have been
did?
his. That might have been D Wade's year before he got traded. I don't know necessarily, but I think so.
I feel like they were there at that time, and I feel like D Wade has
2016.
said good things about him like as well. Or even in Miami, like he didn't go to Miami to be the man. You know, he went there, put in his work, and look, he has a six man in Tyler Hero. He has an all star in Bam. You know, Kyle Lowry revitalized his career after his ring in like Toronto, despite him being hurt, and they're the number one seed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they have this guy what's his name from the Magic and the Pacers, Oladipo
Oladipo.
coming off the bench for him. It's like you can't deny the fact that whether you want to call him a good player, a lucky player, or not, like whatever he's doing, it works. You just have to put him in the right position where it can work, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that's where it stays. I don't think he's overrated. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he's toxic to the locker room. I just think certain teams don't deserve him, and when he's on a team that deserves him, look what they do.
I think the way that I see it, because let me be honest here for a second. Do you guys really see Jimmy Butler as like a flashy player, like a
No.
player that brings like a lot of
No,
like wow, like there's a huge wow factor with him?
no.
Nope.
That's where I honestly think like this whole media narrative gets strung out with Jimmy, because I really do think that because he's not somebody that does something like what John Morant does, where he's looking to put somebody in a body bag when driving to the
Mhm.
lane and just absolutely jam it on somebody's head. Like he doesn't do that. But the one thing that I've always appreciated about Jimmy is actually there's two things. First of all, he keeps it real. He's very honest. He like you're gonna know exactly where he stands. It's like what Kevin mentioned with the whole Minnesota story. Like when he called out the entire team, you knew where he stood though. Like there was no lies told in what he said. And the second thing that I appreciate about Jimmy is it's the model of consistency, but he ramps it up in the playoffs. And really where he makes his money is that mid-range game. His mid-range game in the playoffs specifically, it's just money in the bank. And usually like when you look at these playoff games compared to the regular season, usually the pace of the games in the playoffs are typically a little bit slower, especially as you
Mhm.
get farther along into once you start getting into conference finals rounds and then getting into the NBA finals. And to
Mhm.
me, it just seems like the pace that Jimmy plays at is just at the perfect pace as you could possibly put it. And he just thrives off of that. In game one against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, I mean, in that second half, he was money. It
Well,
27
didn't.
yeah,
points.
like wasn't it the third quarter where he just
He was
Went
went
on his
off?
own individual run.
he
Yeah.
and the thing is, he could drive into the lane. He could hit like a nice little 15 to 18-foot step back. Like granted, I wouldn't say that he's like this dynamic three-point shooter. That's probably the one
Not at all.
element of his game that he kind of struggles in. But I mean, if he's able to score effectively, shoot relatively efficiently, I mean, there's not much else that I could ask for. And he plays good defense on the other side of the ball. And I just think that he's a perfect fit for what Miami is looking for. He's that good veteran leader that can teach some of the young guys that are up and coming, like specifically like Tyler Hero, maybe Bam Adebayo. Like, even though that I look at Jimmy as somebody who is not like the best athlete, he's athletic like compared to us. Like there's no
Yeah.
comparison. But
It's not really saying much.
yeah, I know exactly. But he's just effective. And at the end of the day, no matter how it's done, if he's able to knock shots down and play great defense on the other side of the ball, that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. Is it going to take them to the finals? Potentially. But as far as what Jimmy's been able to do, he's been phenomenal. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy's been with the Heat for 3 years at this point, and he's second as far as the team is concerned when it comes to 40-point performances in the playoffs. He has 5 of them. Dwayne Wade leads the team with 7 all time. He's only 2 away from tying Dwayne's record, and he did it in 3 years.
Yep.
Like it's just phenomenal.